Now your man cave is going to be entirely yours, but there will be people coming in and out of it from time to time, and those people create a mess. Even you just using it the way it is, with drinking cans or bottles, it's going to start to get untidy unless you do something about it. So in this video I've compiled my top 10 tips to keep your man cave tidy without losing the vibe of your man cave itself, or without losing your cool. So let's start with number 10, the 1 in 1 out rule. Now this doesn't necessarily mean people, it could also mean things. As you buy new stuff, it might start to clutter things up unless you start chucking stuff out as well. So with the 1 in 1 out rule, every time you buy something new, you take something old and you throw it out. Or at least you sort of archive it, maybe put it in the loft, think about whether or not that is something that you're going to need. If you can identify something that you don't particularly want and replace it with something newer, it will keep the man cave an awful lot more organised for you. Now, although it's not related to human beings, if your man cave is hosting a party and it is starting to get a bit crowded, you might even want to implement that rule for human bodies. One person has to leave before another person enters. It just makes it a little bit more comfortable perhaps, but really this list is going to be focusing on stuff. So let's press on with number 9. Now number 9 might not apply to you, depends on how big your man cave is, but you might want to consider fold away furniture. If for example you're having a large gathering and you haven't got enough seating, you might want to put some folding chairs somewhere. Now with my man cave, it's very small in comparison to some of the man caves I see online, especially the ones in America and especially the south of America, like Texas. You'll have an enormous man cave probably, and that's fine. If you've got an enormous man cave, skip this step, go on to number 8 immediately. But if you are in the UK or if you've got a smaller man cave, just think about whether or not you use fold away or multi-purpose furniture. And I will get on to multi-purpose furniture a little bit later on in this list. Number 8, get into a bit of a tidy up routine. Now this doesn't need to be anything massive, but getting into some sort of routine whereby you tidy up your man cave is really going to help you out. And it might just be every time you use the man cave, just spend 5 minutes looking around, just going, is that where it should be? Now there is a tool called 5S, which you might have seen if you've done lean management. I don't want to get too businessy with this, but there are tools that will allow you to sort of work out what things need to be where. Now one of those tools is a bit of a mental tool. Take a bit of a snapshot in your head as to say, this is what good looks like. This is what my man cave should look like on an ideal day, when everything's tidy, when everything's put away. Work out what that looks like. Now you could then take photographs, or you could just memorize it. You could put a bit of a chart up somewhere hidden so that you go, is this all correct? Or you might just want to remember it. Either way, use that as a blueprint for saying, what does good look like in my man cave? Once you've got that and you understand what good looks like, just spend 5 minutes every day tidying up. What you do not want to do is to leave it for weeks and weeks and weeks, possibly even months, and then just have to face an absolute abomination of a man cave. You don't want that, you want it tidy. So prevention is better than cure here. Spend about 5 minutes each time you use your man cave and just make sure that certain things, maybe glasses, get put away. Number 7, label your storage boxes. Now, I've done this in my shed, mainly because I didn't particularly want stuff in the man cave as storage. But for those of you who know, this man cave used to be a garage and it did have storage stuff in here. There were things like lawnmowers in here, rakes, garden furniture, all of those sorts of things. I put those away into the shed, and I've also bought a whole load of big plastic boxes. A top tip here is that IKEA sell all of these sorts of things and they stack, and also the smaller ones can stack on top of the bigger ones and they all fit together nicely. And what I've also done is to design all these labels that go onto the plastic so that I can then work out at a glance, that's the Halloween box, that's the Christmas box, that's the tablecloth box. Believe it or not, I've got one of those. So there are ways of organising all of this stuff just so that you can say, this is what is where. And then if you get that all out of your man cave, great. But if you dedicate a part of your man cave to storing stuff, make sure they're labelled, make sure you know what's in there. And that also goes for cupboards. If you have cupboards and you store stuff in them, maybe put a bit of a chart on the inside of the cupboard. Once the cupboard door's closed, you don't need to see it, but when you open it, you'll know exactly what's there. Number 6, storage on the walls. Now this can go multiple different ways. You can have either a pegboard or hang up places for controllers or headphones or guitars. So some of you will know from previous videos on this channel, I've got a guitar hook, and it doesn't necessarily need to make things look ugly. It could just be, this is the most convenient way of storing, for example, a guitar on the wall. And you can even go as far as I have with a smart home integration, so that when I take the guitar off the wall, it turns on the amplifier automatically. So you don't have to do that, but using wall storage does allow you to have a bit more space on the floor, which is ultimately where everything is going to have to go. If you put things away where they're supposed to go on the wall, they look like they're supposed to belong there, and so it looks tidy automatically. Number 5, have a dedicated bin. Now this could be for anything. It could be tissues or crisp wrappers or spare food perhaps. It could just be for bottles, cans and empties, just so that you can chuck them all in one place so that it doesn't look, pardon the pun, rubbish. But by having a dedicated bin, it looks like it's in the right place, and normally that will be behind the bar. Some man caves are going to decide not to have a bar. I'm finding that quite difficult to see examples of when that might happen, but you might not have a bar in your own man cave, or might not have a bar yet. Either way, make sure that there's a place for a dedicated bin so that you can just go, that's where I put my rubbish. And then the 5 minutes of tidying up might just be grab stuff, chuck it in the bin and leave. Obviously you'll need to check when that bin is full, but it's much less of a burden than otherwise. Number 4, use drawer organisers for remotes and pens and anything that you might use in your man cave. Now some of these things are going to be quite small things, so they might be cutlery, for example, knives, forks, spoons, those sorts of things. You might have some stuff for barware. Either way, they need a dedicated place. My grandmother always used to say a place for everything and everything in its place, and that's a really good idea for keeping things tidy. So just make sure that when you're putting things away in cupboards or in drawers, make sure there's a space for it. If there isn't a space, carve a space out. Work it out. Either use some sort of desk tidy, some sort of drawer tidy, some sort of stacking system or boxes that are all labelled so that you know what's going on and where. And number 3 links a little bit to number 6, which is hanging things on the wall. But this time I'd like you to consider wall-mounted cupboards, or at least some sort of place to put them away up off the floor. Now this might be shelves, it might be cupboards, it might be even like I've got, having a bit of an archway where you can put things into that area. It keeps it off the floor, it keeps it above people's headline, and it allows you to make it feel more spacious and more open, but still having all of the things that you need in the right place. If you're not going to be using those things very often, certainly if they're not going to be used daily, you might want to consider just putting them away. And that might include some of your man tools like a saw or a hammer or a screwdriver. Anything that you're not going to use on the absolute regular probably shouldn't be open around and hanging out on surfaces around your man cave. Definitely shouldn't be on the floor, probably shouldn't be on a table. Put it away in a cupboard, put it away on a shelf, put it away somewhere that it's not going to be visibly noticeable, because that will then just ruin the aesthetic if they are piled up somewhere. Now if on the other hand you've got a proper display case for all of your wrenches and they're all lined up in size order, that might look quite good. It depends on the sort of aesthetic you're going for, but the chances are all of these sorts of things, if there are too many of them or if they are all disordered, it's going to look pretty bad. So just make sure that there's a place for them and you're golden. Number 2, and this is starting to get really important now, which is why I've put it at position number 2, is cable management. Cable management allows you to do all of the things that you want to do electronically, but it does keep it a little bit tidier. Now cables, especially nowadays, you've got loads of different things like networking and HDMI and audio cables. If you're not really careful, very quickly it can start to become a bit like spaghetti. So unless you tie these cables together or have some sort of cable management routine, things can start getting incredibly messy behind the scenes very quickly. Even if people don't see it, as soon as you come to do something with those cables, you're just going to be like, well, what's this connected to? And you'd have to fish through and then detangle everything. It becomes really awkward. So it would be much easier if you just go, well, this one and this one and this one are all for that device. Let's tie those together. It doesn't need to be a permanent thing. You don't need to super glue it or anything daft. Just use a couple of cable ties, even a bit of Velcro or something like that. It's dead cheap and it will make the world of difference to your man cave and how organised it feels. Even if no one else sees it except you, it will save you time in the long run, I promise you. And finally, number 1 is hidden storage. Now, hidden storage is sometimes a little bit difficult depending on how you do your man cave. If you've made your man cave or you've adapted it, the chances are you've got the opportunity to add in hidden storage. In this man cave, those of you who followed me for a while will know, I have hidden storage everywhere. I've got it even where the camera is right now. The camera folds back away into the cupboard. I've got cupboards here just underneath Ferdinand. Ferdinand himself is a cupboard door, so he hides my air compressor that's going to be for phase 2 of the man cave. I've got stuff up underneath the archway of the fireplace. I've got stuff in the archway over there over the bar. I've got things inside the bar and inside the cubby holes and all of that sort of stuff. And most of the panelling, although admittedly not this back wall, has hidden storage in it as well. And the reason that I did that was because this started out its life as as a garage, and it had a whole load of stuff in there. Thankfully now a lot of this stuff has been put into the shed down the side of my house, which I've had built since building the man cave, just to give enough space for the bulky stuff like the lawnmower and the strimmer. But still there's lots of space for glue and resins and tapes and all of my tools, all of the things that I do not want to be affected by humidity or the cold. So anything like glues or liquids, they stay in the man cave because I can maintain a fairly even temperature and even humidity in there, which means that they're not going to rust or go dull. And that's really important for cutting implements and that sort of thing. So anything like that I keep in the man cave, anything else I put in the shed. But hidden storage, I would say absolute number one. The other thing that you're going to want to do is to consider furniture that can be used as storage as well. So in my man cave I've got this lovely table that I bought second hand. It was only £15, believe it or not, but it comes with this wonderful drawer that I use for putting things away. Typically I use it for storing my plectrums or guitar picks, and those ones just go in there and I kind of forget about them because plectrums can just slide all over the place, and if they go on a wooden floor like I've got in the man cave, if I stand on it in the wrong way I will probably put my back out. So I just put them away, I keep them safe. That drawer is also really good for things like storing card games and stuff like that, so I put those in there as well. I don't use them very often, but when I do I know exactly where they are. So which one do you think is most important, and did I miss anything? If so, please let me know down in the comments. I read every single one and I love to hear your point of view. I'm going to be back next time with some more magical awesomeness. Hopefully that was useful, and if it was, click that like button, subscribe and ding that bell. But until next time, as always, play magical. Okay, that'll do.